Hey everyone, I'm Tanay, your friendly Linea dev, and with me I have Declan, who's head of Linea at Consensus. Welcome, Declan.
Hey today, nice to see everyone.
So, Declan, August and September were really strong months for Linea. Yesterday was the TGE. We announced a lot of exciting stuff: native yield, tokenomics, product roadmap, and so much more. What's something that excites you the most?
Well, we now have a token that's launched. That in itself is truly exciting and amazing. We've been working on this for a long time. I think it's really a testament to like the whole team who's worked to build the technology, to grow the ecosystem, to kind of think through these tokenomics, and then to actually make sure that we have a smooth launch. One of the most impressive things was that Linea was listed on every single major centralized exchange and decentralized exchange on day one. As far as I'm aware, no other token in history has done that. So that's really like amazing to kind of see the interest in the Linea token, and obviously what Linea token represents in terms of the ecosystem and the tokenomics, but also just in terms of the overall day. We had a lot of trading volume, a lot of people sort of interested in getting involved in the token. Of course, we like to say that everyone is sidelined because again, there is no VCs or teams receiving these tokens, which is very different to most other layer one and layer two blockchain tokens. So yeah, really exciting day. A few little hiccups in terms of the network because there was a crazy amount of traffic, to the point where even AWS, so like Web2 infrastructure, was getting impacted. But, the team dealt with it great. Everything is chugging along nicely now. And yeah, just kind of excited to kind of see the next steps as we continue to see what's actually, again, one of the reasons for having a token is that actually this is going to go into growing the ecosystem, to keeping allowing us to build the technology. So just kind of seeing the future that comes out of this.
Yeah, and speaking of next steps, like what's something that you're looking forward to in September?
Yeah, so we have a few big sort of product releases coming out. One on the ZK side, we have what's called the Limitless Prover. The Limitless Prover allows us to process a number of more transactions in a block because we don't have to count all of the sort of limits in a transaction for the ZK proof itself. So that will be released very soon. We also have an upcoming upgrade to our EVM version. So Linea currently is on the London EVM version, and we're going to be going all the way up to, one of the latest, which is Prague. So that includes lots of opcodes and pre-compiles that developers rely on to build the latest applications. That will be coming very soon on Linea Sepolia and then Linea Mainnet, and we'll unblock new applications that were set to launch as well. So we're going to see some big blue chip protocols continue to join the ecosystem. Very excited about that. On the ecosystem side as well, we've been working extremely hard with some really exciting sort of Web2 companies who will be announcing at the end of the month in terms of building on the Linea blockchain itself. So yeah, definitely excited. So people keep an eye out on that. I think there's a lot happening in payments right now, so not to give too much away, but payments is coming to the blockchain, not just new sort of crypto native payments players, but actually some of the big incumbents from the Web2 world, and to see them kind of building on Linea, that's going to be a really exciting thing to kind of discuss. Yeah, and I think just generally kind of starting to see some of the economics play out that we've implemented. So like again, every transaction on Linea burns 20% of the net protocol fees actually burn ETH, and 80% burn Linea. And so as we see the growth from like this launch and the next steps where more liquidity comes to the chain and we see more trading, we're going to see more transactions burn more tokens. And I think that's going to have a direct impact on the underlying tokenomics itself. So all of this economics and flywheels that we've been designing and implementing, we now get to kind of put them into practice and hopefully see them play out like how we intended it to.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. And Linea has reached the fourth spot now on the L2 beat rollups list. So, what's been a driving factor behind this? What some might say like sudden growth?
Yeah. So, well, we had TVS, total value secured at 2.23 billion. That's the most of any ZK rollup with a validity proof system as it lays out here. I think that's like a huge testament to like all the work that we've done. Because again, optimistic rollups, they're very much like a Gen 1 type technology. They came out, back in 2022. So they've had a lot more time to kind of get, started and sort of like get their training wheels running. Obviously, Linea is like a new gen technology with zero knowledge proofs. So to kind of see it up there as the biggest ZK technology, and again, the future very much is, every rollup will be a ZK rollup. I think, that shows the confidence that the market kind of has in putting its, assets and liquidity on a platform like Linea with ZK proofs. So yeah, I think we've seen a lot of excitement as well because everyone knows that, Linea is really well connected to large liquidity providers, digital asset treasuries. Of course, SharpLink is one of the consortium members at the Linea Consortium, which is the governance council for Linea mainnet. So I think sort of anticipating that, DeFi wave that's coming to Linea and all the protocols like, Aave and Euler and, even, LRTs as an asset class. I think Linea has the largest market share in terms of LRTs on the network. So all of these players are kind of like anticipating and catching the early waves of this DeFi wave coming to Linea. And, you can see it right here live. TVS is up massively. A lot of that TVS is actually stored as well in the protocol. So it's not just about how many assets you have on the platform, but it's about how active they are in DeFi. And I think, out of this 2.23 billion, nearly $2 billion of it is actually active in DeFi. So that's a really good ratio that we like to see. And that means that, this liquidity is going to actively providing depth for traders and protocols that are building on the network itself. So yeah, great progress, but also very cognizant that this is just a start. I think 2.23 billion looks a lot today, but in 6-12 months, it will even look sort of like a splash in the ocean compared to where we think we're going very soon.
Yeah. Looking forward, like maybe 5 to 10 years, how do you see the L2 space evolve, especially when it comes to optimistic versus ZK rollups?
Yeah, I think I guess first in terms of optimistic v zero knowledge ZK rollups, I think every rollup becomes a ZK rollup. The technology converges over time. That's just because ZK is more superior in terms of its finality that it can offer. It's important for liquidity and capital markets to have fast ability to move capital across chains, like very similar to how countries that have like loose capital controls between them end up having a better sort of internal economy. I think chains very much work the same. So just faster finality is an ultimately better experience for liquidity. So every chain will be a ZK rollup. I think the good thing about Linea is that because we've started there, it's often the case where, if you're building on a different technology, it's never that trivial to migrate, right? And again, not only is it not trivial to migrate, running a completely new technology stack requires a whole new different skill set, right? It's like you still have to learn to ride a bike, versus someone who's been riding it since they were a young kid, right? So I do think every rollup ends up as a ZK rollup. And so I think having that experience and that expertise to having run it for a number of years is going to be really valuable for Linea. I think in terms of the overall landscape for L2s, for a long time, I've been sort of describing this like great consolidation. There was this proliferation of L2s, right? It was almost as easy to spin up a rollup as it was easy to spin up a smart contract. And that led to a lot of teams, producing new L2s. App chains we saw a lot of over the last perhaps like 1 to 2 years. I think we're now reached the peak of that. And if you actually look, many app chains and L2s are starting to almost like decommission, right? Or we're seeing this incredible long tail of basically like, chains that don't really have a sort of purpose or like a user base. Because again, ultimately users and liquidity, they actually gravitate towards where the existing users and liquidity already is. So we're going to see a continuation of this like great consolidation. I expect a handful, 3 to 5, large L2s, which really take, 80%, if not 90% or more of all of the activity and liquidity in the space. And then, businesses will continue to build on top of them. So as these L2s can process, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of transactions per second at under a cent, developers can just simply deploy a smart contract and build on top of that, where there's existing users and liquidity. I don't think we'll see like the proliferation of new L2s. We may see some like more corporate L2s. I think that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Again, we're seeing some like corporate L1s right now. We have the new like, Arc and Tempo networks, which are L1s, but I think actually, L2s themselves, where they're like connected to a corporation or even like an exchange, we may sort of see some new additions there. But I do think in terms of general purpose chains, we have 3 or 5. Of course, I believe Linea is going to be one of those, and that's because we have, great technology, great liquidity, and ultimately distribution through connection with the largest wallet in crypto. And then you see a sort of like, a sort of mid tail of like corporate L2s and a long tail of effectively, empty sort of like ghost app chains is what I expect. But we'll see.
Right. And what's something Linea has been doing that you'd like to see other L2s adopt as well?
One thing for sure is, we've committed to burning ETH. So every transaction on Linea actually burns ETH directly. We burn 20% of the net profits in Ether. And I think I would love for every other L2 to do the same, because it's in their interest too, right? Like, this actually goes to providing value back to the layer one, which ultimately every L2 relies on for economic security. Like, an L2 doesn't need to have the same level of decentralization as an L1 because of the way that rollups work and the modular architecture. But if you extract too much value than you give back, you lose that sort of symbiotic relationship, right? And it does become parasitic. And I think what we've done with Linea is we've kind of, shown the path of, hey, this is the right way to build an Ethereum L2, but it's also completely viable, like economically, for every other major L2 to copy and do the same. So I would love for each of the big sort of, 3 to 5 L2s, as I foresee, to kind of have the same, ETH burn model. And if we do more to celebrate how much ETH is being burned, I think, there's this new sort of like BEF token, like BETH, things like that, I think will go a long way to kind of incentivizing people further to do the same thing. I think other things that we're doing, which is really unique and interesting, is native yield. So we have this new feature, which is going to be implemented soon, where the actual ETH on the layer one smart contract will be staked in like a very secure, non-custodial way with institutional validators. Basically, it turns that idle ETH liquidity in the L1 smart contract into active DeFi enabling liquidity on the L2, whilst also securing the L1, right? Because it gets staked, it helps secure the economic security of the layer one itself. And I think that's amazing for L2s to do, because then they can start to use that yield that's generated to do new and interesting things on the L2 itself. So of course, Linea is going to be using that to provide additional rewards in terms of DeFi. So if you go an LP into Aave on Linea, you not just get Aave DeFi rewards, but you also get the staked ETH yield rewards that you earn on the L1 as well. Other L2s like Status, who are using the Linea stack technology, they're actually going to use the yield to subsidize gas fees. So if you go and use the chain for like gaming or consumer use cases, you don't have to pay any fees whatsoever, which is if you're playing a game or something, you wouldn't expect to have to, pay fees to kind of, move a chess piece across a chessboard, right? So they can use that to subsidize gas fees and then have a very clever, like, spam protection mechanism to make sure people aren't spamming the chain. There's just loads more we could uncover with that kind of innovation. So I'd really like to see other teams or stacks following that direction with the native yield and kind of seeing what new innovation can be built there to bring more people on chain at the end of the day.
Yeah, very well said. And switching gears, Declan, why should builders choose Linea as their home chain?
Yeah, so builders should choose Linea as their home chain because, firstly, we have the largest ecosystem fund in the entire crypto space. So Linea set aside 85% of the token supply to an ecosystem fund. Of course, some of that is going to short-term bootstrapping. We had the airdrop at TGE, which went to early contributors. There's early things around liquidity, but the majority of it, over $1 billion at today's prices, if not in who knows, in a few months where that could be. That's there to help bootstrap your business, give you incentives, help you find product market fit. So not only do you know that taking a bet on Linea, the technology and the chain is going to be around for years and decades to come because it's backed by consensus, it's backed by SBET. But you also have the EVM, which is again the sort of lingua franca of like crypto, right? That's the technology and the smart contract platform that you can always take a bet on. There's no risk there. Then you also have this ecosystem fund. So as you sort of grow your business at every stage, you're going to be able to get financial support or a network of other builders that are going to be able to help you continue your journey. So yeah, I've been a founder. Like I think one of the things you think about is, where is the right place for me to get the support I need to, start and then grow my business. And I think when you look at Linea, you're just removing a lot of uncertainty, right? It's going to be around for years. There's no sort of like vendor lock-in, and you're going to get the support of consensus, the support of Sharplink, the support of all of the Ethereum-centric businesses that are building on Linea because of its unique Ethereum sort of credibly neutral platform. All of that comes with the package. And so, yeah, if you're really sort of, if the Ethereum like ethos and philosophy connects with you and you just want to tap into getting users and liquidity, then Linea mainnet is sort of like the default choice, basically.
Right. And let's talk a bit about the Linea ecosystem. Right now, what are some of your favorite apps on the Linea Hub?
Yeah, so some of my favorite apps. So on the trading side, we have EtherX. EtherX is a novel decentralized exchange that's built exclusively on Linea. Uses what's called an X33 token model. So it solves the sort of DEX or decentralized exchange trilemma by connecting liquidity providers, LPs and the pools, traders who, of course, want to actually trade assets on chain, and then also the token holders themselves. So people that actually want to buy and collect the native token, which in this case is Rex or XREX. And yeah, EtherX is it's doing really well. It has over $250 million in TVL in a very short space of time, and we're seeing a lot of new assets launch on there. So ranging from meme coins to blue chip majors like ETH and BTC, and all the LRTs like Easy ETH, WE ETH, and soon even real world assets as well. So I expect more sort of tokenized equities and stocks and commodities to be launching on there as well. So if you want to go and trade on chain and trade some assets on Linea, EtherX is one of the first places you should go check out. I think in addition we have the MetaMask card. So for those who aren't familiar, obviously Linea has been bootstrapped by Consensus, and Consensus is also the builder of the MetaMask wallet, which has a new MetaMask debit card. What's really amazing about this card is that you can now sort of save, spend, earn, get rewarded all on chain in a much better way than you can with your existing card. So if you go into your wallet and you take out your sort of American Express or your Barclays card, you probably get a % cash back. You get like some pretty high APY if you have to like borrow. You can do all of that in a much cheaper and more effective way on chain using the MetaMask card. And at the end of the day, you can use it in any shop you want. Go and just like buy some groceries, get some food with your friends or your partner, and you just swipe whoever accepts MasterCard, and that all becomes an on-chain transaction. Whilst you're not spending, you're earning on that assets that are sitting on chain. You can hold them in stable coins, so you don't have to have any volatility with crypto assets. It really is just like a better experience than the traditional financial system can offer. And so I'm excited about that because I believe it's the probably Trojan horse of crypto applications, right? It's something that anyone can understand, anyone will benefit from. It brings them on chain, it brings them into crypto, and then they can sort of experiment with the more sort of skeuomorphic and unique crypto use cases, right? So I really do think the MetaMask card is something that everyone should look to get if it's in your location, because it's not available in every location yet. It's spreading very quickly, but definitely go check out wherever you are and try and get the MetaMask card and just kind of dip your toes into getting on chain.
And maybe a superficial thing, but it's also the prettiest looking card that I've seen so far.
Yeah, the metal card especially is very well designed, and whipping that out with some friends or anyone like in public is always sort of nice feeling to it as well. Yeah, definitely if you can get the metal card. The virtual card's also really cool. So if you just want to flip out your Apple Wallet or anything, it's also very nice too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And other side of the coin, what are some apps or use cases that you'd love to see on Linea, but they don't exist yet?
Yeah, I still think we're scratching the surface of AI and how AI can intersect with crypto to create some really nice user experiences. I mean, the truth is that it's still a little bit painful to onboard to crypto today. It's definitely a lot better than it has ever been, but it's still not great. So I think I would like to see more use cases of AI actually abstracting away both the onboarding experience and then actually the engagement of what people want to do. Often, people come into crypto these days because of because of trading, right? So actually, if I'm a user and I just want to sort of earn some extra income on my assets, or perhaps I want to kind of see like some trade some more volatile assets, as like a sort of risky part of my portfolio, having almost like a an AI interface or agent that can like help me do that, maybe simply within the wallet, as a sort of like central touch point for like every person coming on chain. I think that would be like a great area. We've seen 8004, which is like a new standard. Some of the folks from Consensus, like Marco De Rossi, have been helping to kind of design, author, and then like advocate for this. and we'll definitely be supporting that on Linea, and we hope to kind of see that be used across many different applications and sort of AI agents who are building on chain. So that's like one big area. I think other sort of specific areas is around how do we get more institutions comfortable with doing DeFi on chain. Like we didn't focus very much on how do we get the likes of Wall Street, Fortune 500 companies, or even public companies actually putting not just like buying ETH, but actually then making it productive on chain on layer 2. And I think there's some more to do there in terms of like compliance and KYC and getting people comfortable with like regards to the sort of like the risk. So any sort of like more any sort of like DeFi use case that helps to continue to bridge TradFi over on chain is definitely worthwhile right now. That's the sort of next big shift in terms of bringing businesses and liquidity on chain. It's that sort of like DeFi 3.0 is what I would call it, where it really starts to look like a DeFi mullet, right? Like sort of DeFi, TradFi on the front, but DeFi in the back, and that's gonna be an amazing sort of introduction of of like global businesses on chain. So use cases in this area definitely another big benefit to the space.
Yep, great ideas. Last question for you, Declan. Would you like to make some 2026 crypto predictions?
2026. So I think by the end of 2026, I think Linea will be the biggest layer 2 by TVL, like actual amount of liquidity that's put into protocols. And again, I think that's because Linea will be positioned as the premier destination for ETH capital. I believe that ETH will, approach flipping Bitcoin again, if not flipping Bitcoin again, based on, not just digital asset treasury companies, but the general sort of shift in the market structure as people understand and start to take a bet on ETH the asset. And then obviously ETH being a productive asset, unlike Bitcoin, it can go into DeFi. Linea is going to be the primary place for that. So that's kind of my biggest sort of core assumption and hypothesis. I think we start to see pretty much every major financial institution, whether that's like a more neobank sort of fintech, or even some of the more traditional big sort of retail banks, start to do everything on chain, right? Whether it's issuing stable coins, whether it's bringing their traditional businesses like banking, even like B2B banking, I think that will start to come on chain. I don't think they will all launch their own blockchains. I think that's sort of like a short-term like knee-jerk reaction to the market. I think we'll see them sort of return to actually launching on general purpose chains, because one of the biggest things, and again, I've got experience working with large enterprises before. I worked on Consensus and helped to build Linea. I worked with a lot of these enterprises to help them deploy their private permission chain. So I understand, their headspace very well. And ultimately, the thing they always need, or the reason that these sort of corporate chains tend to not work, is that they're not credibly neutral, right? The biggest sort of thing a blockchain can offer is credible neutrality. It's a shared database, a shared platform of computation where anyone can come and knows the rules and knows that the rules won't change. And that in itself is one of the big selling points. And blockchains that can offer that, blockchains like Linea, which do have a sort of credibly neutral platform and a credibly neutral technology and roadmap, I think those will be the ones that businesses will start to deploy on, because again, they can take ownership in it and they know the rules aren't going to change. And that's one of the reasons that we actually made sure that the governance for Linea was overseen by a consortium, right? There's no DAO in Linea today. There's no token holder governance. It's overseen by 5 incredibly Ethereum-centric organizations who are very transparent and accountable in what they do and what they oversee. And that is exactly the model that large enterprises and institutions know and appreciate. There is a lot of predictability there, and that is going to be the key difference from a competitor launching on for example, Stripe's L1 chain, because at the end of the day, they're not going to give away their businesses to their competitors. They want a neutral playing field they can all compete on.
Yeah, very cool. We got to get some of these on Myriad. For those of you who don't know, it's a prediction market on Linea. Thank you so much for joining in, Declan. It's been a pleasure chatting with you as always. And thank you all for tuning in. Bye.
The pleasure's mine. Cheers.